Ma'am, step away from the child. Hands where we can see them. He's my son. We received a call. Black female in gray hoodie attempting to abduct a white child. What? He's mine. Ask him. Ask him right now. But they didn't. They didn't ask him. They didn't ask anyone. And as they slammed her onto the trunk of her own car, her 6-year-old screamed until his voice cracked. No one moved. No one helped. Because no one questioned the lie they were too eager to believe. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. The sky was soft and blue over Brookwood Elementary, the kind of spring afternoon that smelled like sunscreen, juice boxes, and fresh-cut grass. Keira Jenkins zipped her son's jacket and slung his backpack over one shoulder, careful not to crush the certificate he'd won for Best Smile at the kindergarten fun run. Micah clutched his paper ribbon proudly in one hand, sticky from orange slices and ice pops. They had just finished taking photos by the balloon arch. Keira crouched beside him, fixing the twisted strap on his little backpack. You ran so fast, baby, I could barely keep up. I almost won. Tommy tripped, though. Does that still count? A win is a win. And you didn't trip. That's something. He laughed and ran ahead toward the parking lot. Keira stayed a few steps behind, letting him enjoy the small moment of victory. She noticed a few moms still folding up tables, stacking bottled water and plastic medals. Most of them didn't look her way. A few did, then looked quickly away again. Keira was used to that. She'd lived in this suburb for nearly 4 years, but she was still an outsider. Still the one they didn't know how to place. She kept her head high. She had stopped trying to fit in a long time ago. At the edge of the field, a white woman with cropped blonde hair and a branded fleece vest stood beside an Escalade. She was watching Micah, then watching Keira, then speaking into her phone. Keira felt the tension settle into her shoulders. She'd seen it before, the pause, the glare, the cold calculation. It always started the same. And this time, like every time, she chose to ignore it. Micah reached the car first. She pressed the unlock button on her keys. Can we get the blue drink from the gas station? You said maybe. Remember? I remember. Let's see how fast we get out of this parking lot. He climbed into the back seat. She helped buckle him in, the ribbon still clutched in his hand. That was when she heard them sirens. Not distant. Not passing by. Close. Too close. 2 police cruisers came screeching into the parking lot, lights flashing, tires screaming against the pavement. Keira stood frozen, door half open. Micah's smile vanished. Hands up. Step away from the child. The command cut through the air like a blade. A female officer leapt from the car, gun drawn but lowered. Her partner circled wide, hand hovering over his holster. Keira's heart slammed against her ribs. What is happening? We received a 911 report. Black female, gray hoodie, attempting to kidnap a minor from school property. That's my son. You'll have a chance to explain. Step back now. Keira raised both hands. Her voice trembled, but she didn't move. Look in my wallet. His name is Micah Jenkins. Same last name. Check the school roster, please. Step away from the vehicle. Micah screamed from the back seat, reaching toward her. Mommy. Mommy. What's happening? Keira took one small step back, and the officer grabbed her. She was spun, slammed against the trunk of her car, cuffed without another word. A PDA mom gasped from a distance, then disappeared behind the safety of her tinted windows. Please, just ask him. Ask my son who I am. But they didn't. They asked no one. Because they had already decided what they wanted to believe. The police station lobby smelled like bleach and paperwork. Keira sat alone on a metal bench, wrists still red from the cuffs they had just removed. Her hoodie was stained from where they had pressed her against the trunk. Her purse had been emptied on a nearby table, her phone, keys, and wallet collected in a plastic tray labeled evidence. She had asked about Micah 4 times. No one answered. The clock on the wall said 4:27 p.m. School had ended at 2:30. She had been in this place for nearly 2 hours. No phone call. No explanation. No rights read. Just suspicion turned into procedure. Finally, a woman in uniform emerged from a side hallway, holding a clipboard and a look of thin irritation. Keira Jenkins? Follow me. Keira stood slowly. Her legs ached from sitting. Her mouth was dry. She hadn't had water since before the fun run. They entered a small interrogation room with a flickering ceiling light and one camera in the corner. No windows. No mirror. Just a steel table and 2 chairs. Have a seat. Keira sat. The officer remained standing. I'm Officer Dyer. You were detained after a report came in from a school parent claiming they witnessed a kidnapping attempt. Do you understand why that happened? Keira looked up. No, I don't. Because there was no kidnapping. The report stated you were attempting to force a child into a vehicle. That child is my son. Do you have any documents to prove custody? In my wallet. My ID, his birth certificate. Same last name. He's 6. He knows my name. You could have asked him. The officers on scene followed protocol. Keira almost laughed. Almost. Is protocol slamming a woman into her own car in front of her child? Officer Dyer ignored the question. We ran your name through the state database. There was no record of maternal custody. Keira blinked. What? You're not listed as guardian on the child's school profile. Only the father. Kira's throat tightened. I'm the one who registered him. I filled out the forms. My address is on them. Dyer shrugged. Not according to what we received. Keira leaned forward, voice shaking now. Where is my son? Dyer finally sat down. He was taken into protective custody. Until we can verify your claim, he'll remain with social services. Keira froze. You took him? It's standard. He was crying for me. And you took him? We acted in the interest of child safety. Silence dropped like a hammer. Keira could barely breathe. I want to call my lawyer. You haven't been charged. You're not entitled to legal representation yet. That word hung in the air. Yet. Keira looked straight into Dyer's eyes. I'm not leaving this room until someone brings my son. That's not your decision to make. The officer stood again, tapping the clipboard. Until we confirm custody, you'll be processed for holding. Processed? It's routine. You're not under arrest. Just cooperative containment. Keira didn't move. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You people think I stole my own son. Ma'am. No. You looked at my skin, his skin, and you made a decision. That's what happened. Officer Dyer didn't respond. She opened the door and motioned to someone outside. 2 deputies entered. Keira didn't resist when they took her by the arms again. She'd done everything right, and none of it mattered. The holding cell was cold. The kind of cold that sank through the concrete bench and coiled around her spine. Keira sat with her knees pulled to her chest, hoodie still damp, the taste of metal and insult lingering on her tongue. Time had stopped meaning anything hours ago. A steel door clanked open. A new woman stepped in. Not in uniform. Gray slacks, blue blouse, a large folder clutched in both arms. She looked like a bank manager, but her eyes were sharp in that way Keira recognized, a bureaucrat's eyes. Ms. Jenkins, my name is Barbara Hall. I'm with Fulton County Child Protective Services. Keira didn't stand. Where is Micah? Barbara sat down across from her, opening the folder without answering. According to the report, an unidentified black female was seen placing a Caucasian child into a vehicle with force. Witnesses described the child as distressed. Keira didn't blink. My son is biracial. And he wasn't distressed, not until armed officers pointed guns at his mother. Barbara flipped a page. The father, Devin Price, is listed as the legal guardian on the school records. Are you and Mr. Price married? Keira shook her head. We were never married. He left before Micah turned 2. And do you have a formal custody agreement? We didn't need one. He was barely involved. I raised Micah. I pay for his school, his food, his everything. Devin signs forms when I ask. That's it. Barbara made a note. So, to be clear, there is no legal documentation confirming you as the custodial parent? Keira's voice cracked. I never needed it. I've never been challenged before. Barbara closed the folder. Unfortunately, without legal proof of custody, Micah will remain in temporary care while the investigation proceeds. Keira stood suddenly. You can't be serious. Barbara stood too, calm and firm. This is a protective measure. From what? From me? From uncertainty. Keira's eyes burned. He's 6 years old. He asked for me when he was born. He called me Mommy before he ever said yes. He still can't fall asleep unless I rub his back with one hand and hold his stuffed bear with the other. And now you've locked him in a stranger's house without either? Barbara hesitated, just for a second, then returned to neutral. He was placed with a certified foster family. He's safe. You will be given a hearing date once the paperwork is processed. How long? Possibly 3 to 5 business days. Business days. You'll be contacted. She walked to the door and knocked. A deputy opened it. Wait, Keira said. Can you at least tell me, did he cry? Barbara paused in the doorway. Her expression remained unreadable. Yes. Then she was gone. The door clanged shut again, and Keira was left alone. No charges. No trial. No violence. Just a black woman. A white system. And her son, missing somewhere inside it. Keira sat at a table with a dull metal surface and a flickering light above her. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the packet they'd just given her. A preliminary CPS report, written by someone she'd never met, describing events that never happened. Page 1, Incident Summary. Subject Jenkins was observed forcibly placing a child into a private vehicle. The child appeared visibly distressed. Witnesses described yelling, resistance, and physical pulling. Subject did not comply with officers at the scene. Subject was combative. Keira stared at the words that now lived in a government file. Combative. She hadn't raised her voice once until they'd cuffed her. Page 2. Guardianship status. No custody documentation available. Father of child confirmed as legal guardian on school records. Mother's relationship to child unverified. Unverified. Keira flipped faster, her eyes scanning for something. Anything. That proved the truth. Photos. Dates. Her name. His name. Nothing. She pushed back from the table and stood up, pacing. A uniformed woman walked past the door but didn't look in. No one looked in. They'd placed her in a temporary interview room again, like she was still being processed. No one said if she was free to go. No one said if she was being charged. Everything was silence, paperwork, and frozen clocks. The door opened suddenly. A man walked in, suit, tie, briefcase, tired eyes. Not a cop. Not a social worker. Ms. Jenkins, I'm Matthew Klein. Appointed guardian ad litem for the child, Micah Price. Appointed by who? The court. I represent your son during CPS proceedings. Keira narrowed her eyes. Does Micah know that? Matthew hesitated. He's very young. The appointment is procedural. Nothing about this is procedural. He opened his briefcase, pulled out a fresh folder. I'm required to review both parent backgrounds. CPS forwarded your work history, address, and contact history. Contact history? He slid a paper across the table. A police report. 3 years ago. Noise complaint. A neighbor called in about raised voices. No arrest. No warning. Just a note that she lived in an unstable domestic environment. That was one argument with my sister, Keira said coldly. We were moving furniture. That neighbor also called the cops when I grilled chicken on the patio. Matthew didn't react. I'm just reviewing the record. Keira sat down again. Her strength was wearing thin. Have you seen him? I visited this morning. He asked for you. The words broke something in her. Was he okay? Matthew didn't answer right away. He cried. A lot. Didn't sleep much. Keira lowered her head into her hands. I need to see him. That'll depend on the judge's ruling after the hearing. When? 3 days. She looked up sharply. He's 6. He doesn't even understand what's happening. I'll include that in my report. She almost laughed. Bitter, hopeless. Are you even listening? They wrote in that file that I was combative. You want to know what I did? I buckled my son's seatbelt. Matthew stood, collecting his things. I'll recommend a supervised meeting. But it's out of my hands now. So whose hands is it in? He looked toward the door. A system that doesn't make exceptions. He left. Keira sat in the silence again, one phrase circling her mind like a vulture. Mother's relationship to child unverified. The county hearing was scheduled for 8 a.m. sharp. Keira had not slept. She had spent the night reviewing every paper they allowed her to see, memorizing every lie in the reports, every line that erased her voice, every paragraph that tried to reframe motherhood as criminal behavior. The courtroom wasn't much larger than the holding cell. Beige walls, wooden benches, one desk for CPS, another for the parent. There was no jury, just a judge. No cameras. No one watching except the people who had already decided she didn't belong here. Keira sat in a black blouse borrowed from a public defender's closet. She didn't have her phone, her ID, or her voice back. Just her hands, folded so tightly they had turned white. A clerk entered and handed a thick file to the judge. This is the full case report, Your Honor. Filed under Emergency Removal Code. Keira's eyes tracked the folder as it hit the bench. Emergency removal. Like she was a drug addict. Or violent. Or a stranger. The judge flipped through the report quickly, eyes scanning. Ms. Jenkins, do you have representation? Keira stood. No, Your Honor. I was told I didn't qualify for assigned counsel since I haven't been charged. This isn't a criminal hearing. It's family court. Different rules. He didn't look at her again. Barbara Hall from CPS stood. Your Honor, our concern is based on multiple observations. Lack of verified custody. Contradictory information from the child's school records. and witness statements describing erratic and potentially dangerous behavior from the respondent. Keira stepped forward. That's false. Barbara didn't stop. Additionally, we have reviewed incident reports tied to the respondent's address. I want to speak. The judge finally looked up. You will have your opportunity. When? After every lie is read into record? He tapped his pen once. You're already on record raising your voice. Keira froze. It had started. The trap. If she stayed silent, she was cold. If she protested, she was dangerous. There was no version of her they would believe unless she vanished entirely. So she sat and listened and waited until the judge spoke again. CPS recommends continued protective custody pending formal custody review. Ms. Jenkins, unless you can provide compelling evidence of legal guardianship, I have no grounds to reverse the emergency order. Keira stood again. Slower this time. May I submit something for the court to review? The judge raised an eyebrow. What? She reached into the folder they'd allowed her to carry and only reviewed, never taken seriously, and pulled out a 6-page document, printed 2 years ago, notarized, signed by Devon Price. A custody agreement. Not a court order, but a legally binding affidavit filed with a state mediator, confirming that Keira Jenkins was Micah's full-time custodial parent. The room fell silent. Even Barbara blinked. This wasn't in our files. Keira looked straight at her. Of course it wasn't. Because I gave it to your office last year when you tried to verify Micah's eligibility for a health program. You lost it. So I kept a copy. She handed it to the clerk. The paper trembled slightly in her fingers, but her face didn't flinch. The judge took it. Read it. Read it again. He didn't look up. Not yet. But for the first time, no one interrupted her. And no one spoke. The judge adjusted his glasses and studied the affidavit in silence. His fingers tapped the edge of the bench, a rhythm of calculation. Keira stood still. Not tense. Not emotional. Just waiting. Barbara Hall from CPS leaned in. Your Honor, I would caution the court against accepting unauthenticated paperwork. We've had no opportunity to confirm these signatures or verify the notary. The judge didn't look up. And yet this document is signed, dated, and bears the state seal from a licensed family mediator. Was that office contacted by your team? Barbara hesitated. No, not yet. The judge flipped to the last page of the affidavit. Then that is a procedural failure on your part, not hers. Keira felt something small shift inside her. Not hope, but balance. For the first time in 5 days, she wasn't the only one being questioned. I'd like this entered into the record, the judge said. We'll take it under review. Keira sat down slowly, breathing carefully. Barbara forced a smile. CPS still believes the child's safety is best ensured through temporary placement until all documentation is fully vetted. The judge nodded. I'll take your recommendation under advisement. We'll reconvene once verification is complete. Bang of the gavel. No decisions. No apologies. Just a pause. Keira gathered her folder and stood to leave, but the judge spoke again. Ms. Jenkins, please remain for a moment. She stopped, turned. Yes, Your Honor. He looked at her for the first time, really looked. The court recognizes your effort to provide appropriate documentation. I would suggest retaining legal counsel before the next appearance. Keira nodded once. Duly noted. She stepped into the hallway, the door closing behind her with a dull thud. Outside, the air felt different. Thinner, but not freer. Matthew Klein, the court-appointed child representative, was waiting by a water fountain. That was unexpected, he said. Keira gave him a long look. You think I came in here unarmed? Most do. She adjusted her folder. That was the surface. I have more. More? She didn't elaborate. Instead, she walked past him and out into the parking lot. Her ride, a borrowed car from her cousin, waited at the curb. She didn't head home. She headed to a copy center. By 4 p.m., she had made 12 certified copies of every document, the affidavit, Micah's birth certificate, her work pay stubs, her lease agreement, and a school enrollment confirmation email printed from an old inbox. Then she stopped by the county records office, waited in line behind 3 people, then submitted a motion to amend Micah's school profile and parent record. At the counter, the clerk asked, What's your relation to the child? Keira looked her dead in the eye. I'm his mother. And this time, I brought proof. Against? It was day 6. Keira arrived at the CPS building 15 minutes before opening. No lawyer. No escort. Just her folder, and a look that no longer asked for understanding. The receptionist barely looked up. Name? Keira Jenkins. I'm here to submit a rebuttal. Against what? Keira slid the folder across the counter. Against every sentence in your report. The woman blinked, took the folder, and walked into the back. 15 minutes later, Barbara Hall appeared in the hallway. Miss Jenkins, what exactly are you? I'm not here to argue, Keira said, stepping forward. I'm here to submit corrections to the narrative you filed with the county. Barbara folded her arms. You're not an attorney. This isn't our process. I am a certified paralegal, trained in administrative law and procedural rebuttals. I worked in this building for 3 years. Desk 12C, 3rd floor, Department of Internal Documentation. Barbara's mouth opened slightly. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't. Keira pulled another paper from her folder. This is a notarized affidavit outlining my previous employment. This is the resignation letter I submitted when I left. And this is a copy of my ethics certification, renewed last fall. Barbara didn't reach for the paper. Keira laid it on the counter anyway. The report your office filed contains 7 material inaccuracies, 3 omissions, and 1 falsified quote. I've listed each one, with references, timestamps, and my own sworn statement. I expect it to be added to the case file before the next hearing. Barbara's voice dropped. I didn't know who you were. Keira met her eyes coldly. That's the problem. You didn't care to. Barbara looked down. The case already escalated past our department. I don't know how much weight a rebuttal carries at this point. That's not your decision anymore. Keira turned to leave. Barbara called after her. I never meant for this to happen. Keira didn't stop walking. But it did. By noon, Keira was in the clerk's office, submitting duplicates of the same rebuttal to the judge's assistant, the guardian ad litem, in the Department of Family Oversight. Matthew Klein called her cell that evening. Someone had finally returned it. You didn't tell me you worked in legal admin, he said. You never asked. This changes how the court sees you. It shouldn't have to. Still, it does. Keira's voice was calm. I filed a motion to dismiss the emergency custody order. Not delay it. Dismiss it entirely. You'll need a hearing. I scheduled one. Silence on the other end. Then, you just might win this. Keira hung up. She didn't need hope. She had documentation. And now, she had momentum. Keira arrived at the second hearing with 2 things the court didn't expect: a printed transcript of her rebuttal, indexed, tabbed, and bound, and a composure colder than steel. This time, the room wasn't quiet. There were whispers as she entered. A CPS supervisor she didn't recognize was seated beside Barbara. The guardian ad litem was already flipping through her documents. The judge entered. No robe, just fatigue. He tapped the gavel once. This is a continuation of the emergency custody review for Micah Price. The court has reviewed the affidavit submitted by Ms. Jenkins, the notarized custody documents, and the rebuttal to CPS's report. He looked up. I find that the affidavit holds legal merit. CPS failed to include it in their original review without cause. Barbara said nothing, but the supervisor stood. Your Honor, we accept the affidavit. However, we are requesting a psychological evaluation of Ms. Jenkins before any reunification is considered. Keira's head turned slowly. What? The woman folded her hands. In our updated notes, we've cited behavior from Ms. Jenkins that raises concern. Elevated tone during initial detainment. Disruptive interruption during court proceedings. Inflexibility. Argumentative posture. These may indicate a pattern of emotional instability. Keira stared at her. You were calling me unstable for defending my rights? The supervisor didn't blink. We're requesting the evaluation purely as precaution. To protect the child. Keira stepped forward. Let the record reflect. I am not being evaluated because I threatened anyone. Not because I hurt anyone. But because I refused to be quiet. The judge held up a hand. Ms. Jenkins, please. Keira didn't sit. No. You let them submit false reports, delay hearings, ignore my son's words, and now, when I present proof, now I'm unstable? Let me ask one thing. She turned to Barbara. Her voice sharpened. Did you ever ask Micah who I was? Silence. Did anyone ask the child you claim to protect what my name is? What my bedtime song is? What food I pack in his lunchbox? Still silence. You didn't. Because you weren't interested in truth. Just protocol. The judge exhaled. I will allow the evaluation, but I will not delay further proceedings. Ms. Jenkins may seek an independent psychologist. Findings must be submitted within 48 hours. Keira sat slowly. She didn't argue again, because she already knew the name of the psychologist she would call. Someone who had worked with her during her paralegal days. Someone who owed her a favor. They wanted a report? She'd give them a report that wouldn't just clear her. It would expose them. That evening, Keira met Dr. Sandra Neal in a quiet office on the west side. The evaluation lasted 90 minutes. Clinical. Precise. At the end, Sandra looked at her calmly. Do you want me to include everything I observed? Keira nodded once. Every word. It was a rainy morning when Keira walked into the courthouse, holding a manila envelope close to her chest. Inside was the result of her psychological evaluation, 6 pages, printed and signed by Dr. Sandra Neal, licensed clinical psychologist, with 27 years of experience and a specialization in judicial assessments. She didn't wear black this time. She wore gray, the color of logic, neutrality, and controlled fire. In the courtroom, Barbara Hall avoided her eyes. The CPS supervisor was there again, but this time, their table had 2 attorneys. Keira didn't flinch. The judge took his seat. Ms. Jenkins, have you completed the court-approved psychological evaluation? I have, Your Honor. She stepped forward and handed the envelope to the clerk, who passed it to the bench. The judge scanned it silently, page after page. Then, according to Dr. Neal's report, the respondent presents no clinical symptoms of instability, trauma-related impairment, or behavioral threat. The report describes the respondent as, quote, rational, lucid, under extreme pressure, yet emotionally contained and exhibiting advanced cognitive regulation. End quote. He turned the last page. Furthermore, Dr. Neal notes the respondent has previously worked in legal documentation review and is, quote, more familiar with judicial language than many entry-level attorneys. End quote. He looked up. Any objections? Barbara opened her mouth, but the supervisor spoke first. No objections, Your Honor. The courtroom was still. Even the air had stopped moving. Keira spoke calmly. I'd like to make one request. Proceed. She reached into her folder and removed one more paper. This is a signed statement from Micah's pediatrician, verifying that I've attended every appointment since his birth. Vaccines, checkups, emergency visits. I've never missed one. She placed it on the table. And this is a notarized letter from his kindergarten teacher, confirming that I drop him off, pick him up, attend parent-teacher meetings, and volunteer on school events when my work allows. She looked directly at the bench. I am not unstable. I am not invisible. And I am not unfit. The judge read the letters, then placed them beside the evaluation report. He tapped the desk once. Thought. Then. The court acknowledges all materials submitted. A final hearing will be held tomorrow, 9 a.m., for ruling on custody restoration. Keira's throat tightened. One more night. One more wall. She turned to leave, but the judge spoke again. Ms. Jenkins. She paused. I've presided over this bench for 16 years. I've seen parents scream, threaten, disappear. I've seen addiction, neglect, violence. You are none of those. A beat. I suggest you rest tonight. You'll want your voice tomorrow. Outside, the rain had slowed. Keira stood under the awning and looked up. Drops caught in her lashes, but she didn't blink. Tomorrow, the fight would end, and she would be heard. The courtroom was half empty when Keira entered. No cameras. No crowd. Just polished floors, silent walls, and the weight of everything she had carried. Micah wasn't there. Neither were CPS lawyers. Only the judge. Only her. The judge opened the file, now thick with documents, rebuttals, evaluations, and evidence. He didn't bang the gavel. Didn't waste time with ceremony. He just began. Final ruling in the matter of Micah Price. Keira sat, her hands folded tight in her lap. This court has reviewed the complete documentation submitted by the respondent, including sworn affidavits of custody, professional assessments, and multiple records confirming continuous parental involvement. A pause. The respondent has provided overwhelming evidence of legal guardianship, emotional stability, and primary care responsibility. He looked directly at her. Custody is restored, effective immediately. No celebration followed. No relief from the room. The decision was quiet, but final. Keira didn't cry. When can I see him? He's been transferred to a reunification site. An officer will escort you within the hour. She nodded. One motion. Enough. The judge closed the folder. Ms. Jenkins. She looked up. The rebuttal you filed. It's one of the most precise case reviews I've seen from an unrepresented party. You have a legal mind. Ever thought about practicing? She gave the faintest trace of a smile. I thought about a lot of things. But first, I had to prove I was a mother. Micah was sitting in a plain room with beige walls and a county-issued teddy bear. He didn't move when the door opened. Not at first. Then he saw her. He stood so quickly his chair fell over. "Mommy!" He ran. She dropped to her knees just in time to catch him. Her arms wrapped around him tight. Her hands clutched his face, checking him. Cheeks, forehead, chin. "I missed you so much," he whispered. "I never left," she said into his hair. Not even for 1 second. A woman behind them spoke, the social worker, but Keira didn't answer. She was already walking out, Micah wrapped around her, his small backpack swinging behind. The same backpack she'd been accused of forcing onto a child. Now it was hers again. So was he. Outside, the sky was soft and quiet. The courthouse faded behind them. She buckled Micah into the back seat of the car. His hand lingered on hers just a little longer before letting go. "Can we get the blue drink now?" She smiled. "You earned it." They drove in silence. No music. No talking. Just breath. And after everything, that silence finally belonged to them. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.